So today I want to talk about goals, targets and tasks, okay? Now in the past, we've talked about business planning and maybe creating a big business plan or a strategic plan, but these are different. And I want you to understand the difference between goals and targets and tasks that you're doing and how we can use each of them strategically to get to where we're going the most efficient way. Now I want you to think about your goal as being the destination, where you're heading. And I want you to think about your targets as like little checkpoints along the way. And if we get to all those checkpoints, eventually we'll make it to the destination. That is the best way to think about these things. Now, a couple of examples of some goals could be, okay, I want to hit a certain level of turnover. Or maybe you want to build the business, sell it, and have a nest egg for when you retire. Those are brilliant goals that you could set yourself. Now, you might be somebody who likes really specific goals. So it might be, I want to retire when I'm 50. Or you might be somebody who's a little bit more generic and you're like, I want to be financially secure, right? Those are both really tremendous goals. Just different people will favor different styles. Now, the reason these are so important is if you don't have a clear picture of where you're going, how are you ever going to know if you're on the right path or if you've got there? Now, the problem with goals is they can be so far off. They can be such a long way in the future, right? And I once heard Steve Redgrave talk about this. Brilliant way when we can see another example and bring it into business, right? Arguably one of the most successful Olympians of all times, had a career spanning 20 decades. He competed in 5 Olympics. He won 5 consecutive gold medals, hugely successful. And I heard Steve talking about this and he said for him, focusing on the next Olympics was just too far in the future. If you've ever heard that saying, how do you eat an elephant? It probably feels like that. The next Olympics are so far off. So what he did instead was he would set himself little targets along the way. And that was a little bit more achievable. If he had to think about the fact of I've got to train twice a day, every day for the next 4 years, I mean, how do you motivate yourself to do that? Whereas actually what he would do is he would break it down to smaller targets. So things like he would focus on the next 10 strokes that he was doing and making them the best possible they could be. Or he'd set himself the target of doing the next 250 meters and breaking a certain time that he wanted to do. Those are achievable little targets to set yourself. And then what you do is you stack all of those targets up and eventually they lead towards your goal. Now we can use this same approach as entrepreneurs, so we can bring it into our world. And the way I do that is quite simple to-do lists. Now, it might seem really simple. You know, we all talk about to-do lists, but I want to talk to you about how I manage my to-do lists. So at the start of every day, I will plan my day. I will sit down and I'll work out, right, what emails do I want to get off? What calls do I need to do? What specific actions do I need to get? And writing all of these down gives me something to focus on so that I could see exactly what I need to get done that day and where I'm heading. Now, a couple of tips. Some people like to do things electronically, right? That's great. I personally prefer to write them down. Even if it's not on an old-fashioned piece of paper with a pen and I do it on my electronic tablet, I like to have a handwritten list. And it's that feeling of writing something down and it forces you to think about exactly what it is we're doing. Now, the rule is always what goes on the list must get done. No point putting things on there and thinking, I'll probably never get round to that, okay? If you're disciplined about your to-do list, you only write things down that you know you need to get done. Now, another little trick that I use is when I'm writing them down, I like the physical thought of crossing things off, but I don't always like to put a line through it. So I remember learning this from one of my bosses back when I was at university, and she used to write a little square and then write the to-do list. So that when you've done it, you go back and you put a little tick in the square. And I've even been known from time to time, I want to add something else. If I've done something that wasn't on my to-do list, I'll write a square, put a tick in and then write down what I was going to do. And it's just that feeling of having achieved something because I can see as I'm getting through the list, a visual representation at any point of the day. Even if I feel like I'm not doing well and I haven't achieved much today, I can look down at my to-do list and actually I've got a load of these little squares ticked off. I know I'm heading in the right direction. Now, I still want you to think about being quite specific with what you're writing down. So, for example, if you have to call a certain supplier, you could just write call supplier X. Or you could write call supplier X, need to renegotiate the pricing on this product, need to feedback on how this has got done, and I need to set a date for our next meeting. So I know what I need to get out of that call. So it's a slightly bigger to-do list, but it gives you the headspace to focus on what is that task going to be and how am I going to achieve it. And then another great thing with these is if you're ever having a really bad day and you're just feeling like you're not winning at life, you can look down on your to-do list and think, actually, I've done all right today. I've achieved something. So in summary, your goals, they're the big picture things. They're where we're heading, but they could be a lot of years out, right? It might take months or even years to get there. Your targets, they're really specific. Those are the things, the checkpoints along the way that we're going to work towards. Now, some people might have them for the day, for the week, for the month, but try not to have them too far out. Then finally, your actions, what we actually need to do to make sure that we achieve those targets, which set us in the right direction so that one day we want to make sure we achieve our goals.